Tonight, another blow to Donald Trump's tariffs, why a U.S. appeals court rules most of them illegal and sets the stage for a Supreme Court showdown. The decision comes as new data shows the impact of the trade war in Canada.
This is not a good picture for Canada and what's happening here.
The sharp decline and what worries economists moving forward. A controversial proposal to remove certain books from school libraries.
We're seeing a little vicious compliance here. They've been overly aggressive at what they've put on there.
Why Alberta's premier is slamming one city's school board for not complying with the province's plans. And it's a match made in heaven.
It's the best partner I ever played with outside of Serena.
How Canada's Leylah Fernandez and American Venus Williams are doubling up in the quest for tennis glory.
CTV National News with Heather Butts. Reporting tonight, Marcia McMillan.
Good evening. U.S. President Donald Trump has called tariff the most beautiful word in the dictionary. Today, a U.S. federal appeals court called them illegal. In a split decision, the judges ruled the president overstepped his powers by implementing certain tariffs, but stopped short of blocking them. The decision could have major consequences for the president's agenda and the world economy, including Canada's. CTV's Mike LeCouture is in Ottawa with the story for us tonight. Mike.
Well, Marcia, nothing changes for any trading partners, including Canada, because the court also said the tariffs can remain in place as the case proceeds. But this is the second court to rule that U.S. President Donald Trump has overstepped his authority by imposing across-the-board duties on imports from dozens of countries. Now, today's ruling is on the 35% tariffs that are being applied to Canadian goods which are not covered by our trade agreement with the U.S. That's also known as CUSMA. It does not affect the punishing tariffs that are being applied to steel, aluminum, copper, or the auto industry, which were applied under a separate act. Trump did respond on his social media, writing in all caps, "All tariffs are still in effect." He called the appeals court highly partisan, adding, quote, "If these tariffs ever went away, it would be a total disaster for the country. It would make us financially weak, and we have to be strong." The court basically said the power to impose tariffs rests with Congress, not the president. An American lawyer who argued against the U.S. government says this decision sends a message that President Trump can't impose tariffs on his own.
You've got the president who's imposed the largest tax increase on American consumers since 1993 in the form of these tariffs. That's according to the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation. And he did it without Congress saying one word. That is not our constitutional structure.
Back in May, the Court of International Trade blocked the tariffs, saying the president overstepped his authority. That decision was appealed, and the Trump administration has already said it will appeal today's decision to the Supreme Court. Marcia?
Thank you, Mike. Tariffs and trade are weighing heavily on the Canadian economy as new numbers show a sharp slowdown that has some economists sounding the alarm about a recession. CTV's Kamal Karamali now with how the country is faring under all the uncertainty. Kamal.
Marcia, the downturn driven by the ongoing trade war, signaling signs of a possible recession. After months of being assaulted by U.S. tariffs and battered by the ongoing trade war, Canada now showing major cracks in the armor.
This is not a good picture for Canada and what's happening here.
Canada's economy contracted in the second quarter, much more than expected, shrinking by 1.6% on an annualized basis. It's the first quarterly contraction in nearly 2 years and the steepest decline since the pandemic.
Essentially, the big change was in the first quarter, we had a rush to get exports out into the U.S. as quickly as possible. In the second quarter, that all came to a halt as some of these tariffs started to take effect.
U.S. President Donald Trump ramped up tariffs against Canada and the world that quarter, targeting steel, aluminum, and autos, while April, May, and June then saw a sharp drop-off in business investment by roughly 10%.
The depth of decline that we're seeing in the manufacturing sector is something that we haven't seen in many years. And so it is a cause for concern.
Vehicle exports plummeting nearly 25%, industrial machinery exports and travel services also falling drastically. In fact, Canada saw an unprecedented trade deficit in the second quarter, with a big gap between its minimal exports versus its massive amount of imports. The difference between the two, a whopping $19.6 billion in goods and services.
Well, guess what's happening in the middle of a trade war with the U.S.? We're exporting substantially less stuff to our major trade partner.
All of it raising fears of a recession, which economists say Canada would be in if the GDP sees another decline in the third quarter of this year.
We need to be a little bit more cautious, and that caution, of course, feeds into the economy.
The latest GDP figures will put a sharper focus on the Bank of Canada and whether it'll make an interest rate cut in mid-September. Marcia.
CTV's Kamal Karmali in Toronto. Thank you for that. Well, a lot of Canadian businesses are about to feel even more squeezed by the Trump administration's latest trade move. As of today, the U.S. is closing a loophole that allowed for items to be shipped there duty-free. CTV's Jeremy Sharon explains the consequences of the U.S. dropping the de minimis exemption.
In small businesses across the country, there is an unfortunate new reality.
I know that I'm going to see a decline in sales to the States.
Cal Green's Ottawa-based streetwear brand Raised by Wolves is no exception.
So we've produced the apparel, they've done the shoes, and then
At least a quarter of his business comes through direct sale to American consumers or wholesalers. His product no longer exempt from duties when shipped south of the border, forcing him to make a difficult decision.
The duties, the tariffs, the brokerage fees, and the shipping is going to be included in the price for U.S. customers to be transparent. That's really all I can do at this point. As a small business, I can't afford to eat those costs.
Some of his products could still be exempt if he can prove they're CUSMA compliant, but like for thousands of other businesses, that will require more time and effort, which experts say won't always make sense.
That may not be worth the cost for many businesses.
It's a huge nightmare. Has been a really steep learning curve.
Last year, almost 1.4 billion packages entered America duty-free. Now the new fees will vary based on a variety of factors, including the country of origin. But some businesses say they'll avoid it altogether.
I just suspended U.S. shipping for now.
Others hopeful to keep at least some of their longtime American customers.
I don't think there's as much anyone can do about it at this point. So I just want to keep moving forward and do the best I can.
At least 25 countries have opted to suspend U.S. shipping, citing a lack of clarity around enforcement. Canada Post says it'll work with a third party to collect and send the duties directly to U.S. Customs. Jeremy Sharon, CTV News, Ottawa.
The federal government's new major projects office launched today as Ottawa pushes construction of large-scale infrastructure. Dawn Farrell has been named CEO of the new office, which is based in Calgary. She previously served as the president and chief executive of the Trans Mountain Corporation. The Carney government pushed its major projects bill through Parliament in June. Indigenous leaders have pushed back on the bill, saying it could undermine consultation with their communities. Library shelves in Edmonton will be a lot emptier this school year thanks to a proposed plan to ban certain books, including classics by Canadian authors. CTV's Mark Villani with more on why this could be the final chapter for over 200 books in schools.
Alberta's government is cracking down on what kids can or can't read at their school library this fall.
We are trying to take sexually explicit content out of elementary schools that is inappropriate for me to show on the television news at night.
A new ministerial order is focused on steering kindergarten to grade 12 kids away from what the UCP government considers inappropriate texts. That's prompted Edmonton Public Schools to create lists consisting of more than 200 books to remove. They feature world-renowned authors like Aldous Huxley, Margaret Atwood, even Judy Blume. The texts were narrowed into 3 categories. It includes materials with explicit content like Alice Walker's The Color Purple, books with non-explicit sexual content like 1984, along with non-sexual content, including teen favorites like The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins.
Edmonton Public is clearly doing a little vicious compliance.
Edmonton Public Schools chair says several excellent books will be removed from our shelves this fall. We encourage anyone who has a concern about a book being removed to contact the Minister of Education directly.
The real fundamental problem here is that decisions about what should end up on school library shelves needs to be left to trained educators and trained librarians.
And already authors are speaking their mind. Atwood posting sarcastically to social media for kids not to read Handmaid's Tale or else their hair will catch fire. American author Jodi Picoult, a frequent censorship target in her home country, also took issue, telling CTV book bans do not protect children, but instead remove tools to help them navigate an increasingly difficult world. Both Calgary's public and Catholic school districts confirm they will comply with the province's directive, but haven't come up with lists. Alberta's premier insists there's no provincial book ban. Her education minister says he wants to talk to the school boards about their selections.
I'm really curious to know what the province's process is going to be.
Academics say the censorship of certain texts take away the freedom for children to open their mind to new ideas.
When we see this kind of confusion resulting, I'm not surprised, but I'm certainly dismayed, and I'm deeply concerned for access to literature.
Mark Villani, CTV News, Calgary.
Ottawa police are investigating the stabbing of a Jewish woman inside a grocery store as a hate-motivated crime.
We need action. We need those that perpetrate these kinds of things to be held to the greatest account of the law.
A woman in her 70s was stabbed by a 71-year-old man. The suspect was arrested at the scene and will be back in court next week. The victim is in critical condition. Prime Minister Mark Carney took to social media following the attack to condemn the senseless and deeply disturbing attack. Addressing the Canadian Jewish community, Carney says you are not alone, adding he will act to confront anti-Semitism wherever it appears. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre called on the Carney government today to adopt a stand-on-guard law, allowing Canadians to use lethal force against home intruders without fear of facing charges. As CTV's Rachel Aiello explains, the criminal code already permits people to defend themselves against intruders with conditions.
We need to change the law.
If an intruder strikes, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre wants homeowners' use of force, even lethal, to be presumed reasonable.
Simply put, it means you have the right to use force to defend your home and your family against someone who threatens you and who has entered illegally.
Poilievre delving into what constitutes legal self-defense follows headlines about a few controversial cases.
I don't see it as being a real widespread problem.
Last week in Lindsay, Ontario, a man woke up to an alleged armed intruder in his apartment. An altercation ensued and the intruder was airlifted to hospital. Local police charged both men.
Your home is your castle.
Canadians already have the right to defend themselves in a home invasion, but those rights are not unlimited.
I think it's absolutely appropriate to extend the law to allow for more force or more reasonable force to be used in these circumstances.
Unlike U.S. castle laws, Canada's criminal code only allows the use of force when it's deemed reasonable and proportionate. And that determination is up to the judge and jury.
But what's proposed, it really says everything's reasonable. So if I go into someone's house with a squirt gun and they shoot me with a 12-gauge shotgun, does that mean it's reasonable? Because it's presumed to be. So I just don't see that as workable.
Responding to Poilievre's pitch, Justice Minister Sean Fraser accused the Conservative leader of chasing a photo op by attacking police for doing their jobs. Marcia?
Rachel, thank you. CTV's Rachel Aiello in Ottawa. An Ontario jewelry store's new security system is designed to make robbery attempts go up in smoke. Once an employee presses the hold up button during an act of robbery, a non-toxic fog pumps into the store. The system was installed after a smash and grab at the location. It's designed to prevent thieves from being able to see, thwarting their attempted heist. Well, another setback for Canada's race to space at a launch pad in Newfoundland. With less than a minute to go, the plan to launch the Nord Space was scrapped due to an ignition issue. If successful, the launch would have marked the first commercial rocket launch in Canadian history and the first of its kind from a Canadian spaceport. The launch was originally scheduled for Monday, but rescheduled to Friday due to inclement weather. Nord Space is looking to try again in September. Coming up, Israel applies what it calls great force in Gaza. Why the dense streets of Gaza City are now an active combat zone. Plus, remembering the devastation of Hurricane Katrina 20 years later. Israel is now calling Gaza City a dangerous combat zone as it launches the first phase of its planned offensive. Israeli Defense Forces say they are focusing on the outskirts of Gaza City, forcing tens of thousands to flee the region. The assault has drawn global condemnation and concern that it will make the humanitarian crisis and famine conditions worse. Israel calls Gaza City one of the last strongholds of Hamas. Israel also says it has recovered the bodies of 2 hostages, including Ilan Weiss and another unnamed hostages. About 50 hostages remain in Gaza. Israel believes 20 are still alive. Ahead of the United Nations General Assembly meeting in September, the U.S. State Department is denying and revoking visas to Palestinian leaders.
It is important that all member states, permanent observers, be able to be represented, especially, I think in this case, with the, as we know, the upcoming 2-state solution meeting.
Among those who will not be allowed into the country is Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. The controversial decision will limit the Palestinian presence at the annual Global Summit, where a number of key nations, including Canada, are expected to recognize a Palestinian state. A solemn ceremony was held today in New Orleans, marking the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. Music rang out at the memorial to Katrina's victims as people gathered to honor those who lost their lives and the survivors who rebuilt the city. Hurricane Katrina was a Category 3 when it made landfall in 2005. Parts of the city's levee system collapsed, bringing devastating flooding to parts of the city. 1,400 people were killed across 5 states. More than 1 million were displaced along the U.S. Gulf Coast, as captured at the time by CTV's John Benavali-Rao.
Me walking through the waters, I never had nothing like that to happen. I feel after this is all over with, I feel that I'm gonna be under a lot of stress.
What are you gonna do now? What are you being told? Where are you gonna go?
They haven't told us anything. They just say they're gonna bring us to I-10 and Causeway and they're gonna bust us out from here.
I don't know, I'm just getting out of New Orleans. I'm just getting out of here.
Katrina caused $200 billion in damage, and it remains the costliest U.S. hurricane on record. Still ahead, why it's hard to breathe in Nova Scotia. What people are dealing with now after raging wildfires across the province. Two firefighters working to contain the biggest wildfire in Washington state have been arrested by U.S. Border Patrol agents while on duty.
Thank you, sir. Whenever you guys get a chance, exercise your tribal right.
Border Patrol officers were deployed to check the identification of a crew 2 kilometers from the front line. The agency says 2 workers were in the country illegally. The incident comes as the Trump administration ramps up its crackdown on illegal immigration. The Long Lake wildfire in Nova Scotia has already devoured over 80 square kilometers of land. Adding to the concern, air quality warnings from smoke hovering over large swaths of the province. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth with more on how far-reaching those warnings are.
20 homes destroyed, more than 500 properties evacuated, a state of emergency still in place. The Long Lake wildfire has been burning for more than 2 weeks.
To be honest, there's no point worrying about it because you can't change it, can you? The only people that can change it are the firemen.
As the massive fire rips through dense Nova Scotia forest, a heavy cloud of thick smoke has made life unpleasant for people who live here.
It usually hits one direction a little bit worse than another, so we
chase the fresh air.
Yeah, go where it isn't.
The province has dealt with numerous air quality alerts. The toxic smoke is dangerous, especially for seniors with pre-existing health problems.
I spent years as CEO of the Lung Association, so I understand that seniors in this area have among the highest amounts of COPD in the country.
Poor air quality can also cause long-term lung damage, regardless of age.
Stay home, stay indoors, close the windows, turn on the air conditioning so that it'll filter the outside air, and stay safe because it is not good for you to be breathing in bad air like that.
For people who live in Nova Scotia's Annapolis County and in other parts of the province, staying indoors is a challenge because they have work and other daily activities as this massive wildfire continues to burn.
We don't always fully appreciate how susceptible we are to natural disasters.
Many Nova Scotians are worried about their homes being destroyed and breathing in dangerous fumes as the Long Lake wildfire continues to burn out of control. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Still ahead, a pair of aces at the U.S. Open. How a Canadian tennis star led Venus Williams to win her first U.S. Open doubles match in more than a decade. There's a new dynamic duo taking the tennis world by storm. American Venus Williams and Canadian Leylah Fernandez have been putting on a real display of cross-border cooperation on the court. CTV's Quebec bureau chief Geneviève Beauchemin is serving up the story for us tonight.
This tennis odd couple of sorts took to the court at the U.S. Open.
Crossover of generations in this one. Williams was 23 years old when Fernandez was born.
And already a superstar with 7 Grand Slams to her name.
In Montreal, I would like to go on a date.
Montreal-born Leylah Fernandez is now 22. The U.S.'s Venus Williams, 45, is her idol.
Game, set, match, Miss Williams, Miss Williams.
Has won 14 Grand Slam doubles titles before with her sister Serena.
I'm used to being the big sister, so, you know.
Williams is also 6'1", towering over Fernandez at 5'6". And this Canadian-American partnership stretches across borders to at a, particular time in history. Still, observers say it works.
It's a great doubles pair. It's exciting, and she's playing at U.S. Open with Venus. Venus has such a big crowd always behind her.
Fernandez's volley goes long.
There were some early adjustments to be made. Not surprising, really. The partnership only came to be Tuesday after the Czech player Fernandez was originally paired up with pulled out due to injury.
Good move.
The doubles team, though, landed a big victory in Williams' first Grand Slam tournament in 2 years.
It's the best partner I ever played with outside of Serena.
It's like probably the biggest compliment I ever got. So thank you, Venus. I mean, oh man. I feel like those are big shoes to fill at the moment.
Now the pair will be back on the court for second round play on Saturday. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
That's our newscast for this Friday night. I'm Marcia McMillan. For all of us at CTV National News, thanks for watching. Good night, and we'll see you tomorrow.